You are standing on the threshold of a completely new life. I do not say that lightly. I am not here to flatter you, or to fill your head with pleasant daydreams. I am here to tell you, as plainly as I know how, that your entire experience of this world can change, and change radically, the moment you accept a very simple truth about yourself. You are about to experience unstoppable success. Now, when I use that word unstoppable, I do not mean that you will never again meet resistance, or that doors will never close, or that men will never say no to you. No, I mean something far more wonderful. I mean that once success is accepted as the truth of your being, once it is assumed in consciousness, nothing in this three-dimensional world can finally oppose it. The world may delay, it may rearrange, it may appear to contradict you for a time, but in the end it must yield to the state you have dared to occupy. So I want you, just for a moment, to forget your past. Forget what the bank has said. Forget what your employer has said. Forget what the doctor has said, what your family has said, what your own fearful mind has whispered to you in the dark. Lay it all aside. For none of these things have the final word about your life. Your success is not somewhere in the distance, waiting to arrive, if you work hard enough, or wait long enough, or please enough people. Your success exists now, complete and perfect, in what I call the fourth dimension, the invisible realm of states. Every possible version of your life already exists there. The failure you have feared, the mediocrity you have tolerated, and the great, radiant success your heart secretly longs for, Paul. All are present now as states of consciousness, waiting only to be assumed. Tonight I want to show you how to assume the one called unstoppable success. What most men call reality is nothing more than the solidified shadow of yesterday's assumptions. They believe the shadow to be the cause, and so they live as prisoners of facts, of figures on a page, of opinions, of so-called circumstances. But I tell you, facts are the past petrified. They are the echo, not the voice. The true cause of everything you experience is your consciousness, the state from which you habitually think, feel, and react. Consciousness is the only reality. If you will accept this, not merely as an interesting theory, but as an absolute law, you will never again live as a victim of conditions. You will know that you are the operant power. You are not a small creature hoping for favor from some distant being. You are the very life of God individualized, and your world is nothing more nor less than your own assumptions pushed out. The law by which this is accomplished, I have called the law of assumption. It is very simple. That which you assume to be true, though it be denied by your senses and contradicted by all outer evidence, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Your outer world is perpetually arranging itself to match the inner state to which you remain loyal. Now consider what this means for your success. If you assume that you are a man struggling to get by, if you secretly believe that life is hard, that opportunities are rare, that others are more favored than you, then no matter how many books you read, how many systems you follow, how many hours you labor, your world must echo that inner poverty. You may have moments of apparent progress, but sooner or later, you will find yourself back in the same old place because you never truly left it in consciousness. But the reverse is equally true. If you dare to assume that you are already successful, not will be, but are, if you clothe your I am with the feeling of the man who cannot be denied, the man for whom doors open, the man whose way is prepared, then even in the midst of present lack, even while the outer world still shows the old picture, a new arrangement must begin. People, events, chances, ideas, all will move to bring out in this world what you have accepted as true in the inner world. Success, then, is not something you pursue. It is something you express. You are not here tonight to learn how to chase success. You are here to discover how to be success. When you are the thing in consciousness, you cannot help but meet it in experience. The law is exact, impartial, unchanging. It cares nothing for your past, nothing for what others think of you, nothing for what the newspapers say is possible. It responds solely to one thing, the assumption to which you are faithful. So I want you to listen to me, not as one listening to a lecturer, but as one listening to his own deeper self. For the being who says I am in you is the same being who says I am in me. It is God hiding in man, learning to know himself through the drama of life. When I speak of your success, I am speaking of the success of that one, being your own wonderful human imagination. I am not here to give you moral lessons, or to tell you what career you should choose, or how many hours you should work. I am here to speak of law. Just as there is a law by which water must boil when it reaches a certain temperature, there is a law by which the unseen assumptions of man must become the seen facts of his world. You may ignore this law, you may misuse it, but you cannot escape it. Tonight we shall use it deliberately. I ask you now, can you for this hour forget the story of failure you have told yourself? Can you put aside the old name, the old label, unlucky, average, too late, not enough, and dare instead to answer to a new name? For the name of God, revealed to Moses, was not a title in the sky, but the simple living phrase, I am. Whatever you add to those words, you summon into the theater of your life. Say within yourself now, very quietly, I am successful. Do not shout it, do not strain. Say it as you would say, I am here. Let it be natural, let it sink. For this little phrase, accepted and felt as true, is the very beginning of unstoppable success. In the minutes that follow, I shall take you step by step through what occurs in consciousness when you assume this state, how your world begins to rearrange itself, how apparent obstacles become stepping stones, how the borderland of sleep may be used as the workshop of creation, and how in the end you come to see that what you call success is nothing more than the free expression of the God within you. But we begin here with this simple recognition. Your success is not on its way. It is now in consciousness. And the only question before you tonight is this: will you dare to assume it? Now let us journey a little deeper into this mystery I call the fourth dimension, the realm of fulfilled states. When I speak of dimensions, I do not refer to mathematical planes or scientific abstractions. I speak of levels of consciousness. The fourth dimension is simply the invisible world that precedes the visible one. The world where every state, every condition, every possibility already exists in completion. This is the realm where your unstoppable success already is. It does not wait to be created. It does not depend upon time, effort, or circumstance. It exists now as a finished reality in consciousness. You see, this world that you and I call reality, this three-dimensional world of space and time, is only a shadow, a living, moving shadow cast by states of consciousness from that higher dimension. Just as the picture you see projected on a screen is only the reflection of the film inside the projector, so your world is but the reflection of your inner state. If you wish to change the picture, you do not wrestle with the screen, you change the film. Every man who has achieved what the world calls great success, whether he knew it or not, operated from this same law. He entered in imagination the state he desired to express, and he remained there until that state impressed itself upon his consciousness so deeply that the outer world had no choice but to mirror it. You may think that success comes through chance, through luck, through meeting the right person, or being in the right person, or being in the right place at the right time. But I tell you, every so-called coincidence in life is simply the outpicturing of an assumption sustained. The man who knows this law no longer waits for conditions to change. He changes the state from which he observes them. Let me show you the difference. There is the man who waits. He looks out upon the world and says, when I have more money, I will feel secure. When I meet the right partner, I will feel loved. When opportunity knocks, I will feel successful. He waits for outer things to grant him permission to feel inner satisfaction. And so he waits endlessly, for the outer cannot move until the inner has moved first. And there is the other man, the awakened man. He understands that life moves from within out. He closes his eyes and dares to feel what he wishes were true. He walks in imagination, as though the thing he desires were already accomplished. And though the evidence of his senses denies it, he remains faithful to that inner knowing until the world rearranges itself to express his assumption. One lives by reaction, the other by creation. One waits for success to happen, the other assumes success now. This is the great secret of the fourth dimension. Everything exists, every state imaginable. Wealth, failure, health, sickness, love, loneliness, all are present now, coexisting in the eternal realm of consciousness. You do not create anything. You simply select the state you wish to express, and by sustained attention and feeling, you fuse with it until it becomes your new reality. In that dimension, there is no time, as you know it. What appears here as the future already exists there as the now. You are not traveling toward success. You are awakening to it. Think of the radio. At this very moment, countless stations fill the air around you, each broadcasting its own music, its own words, its own mood. Yet you hear only the station to which your receiver is tuned. The others are not destroyed. They remain, but they are not realized by you. So it is with consciousness. You are always tuned to a particular state, perhaps of struggle, perhaps of triumph, and your world faithfully echoes the station you have selected. If you do not like what you hear, you do not curse the airwaves. You simply change the tuning. Your consciousness is the tuner. Now imagine this. Your unstoppable success is one of those stations, always broadcasting, always waiting to be received. The signal is clear, constant, eternal. It will never fade, for it is sustained by the divine imagination itself. The only question is, will you tune in? To live in the fourth dimension is to refuse to be governed by appearances. It is to walk by faith, not by sight. It is to know that what you assume to be true in consciousness must, in its own appointed hour, become true in this world of form. Every great discovery, every masterpiece, every empire began as a single assumption in the mind of a man who dared to see beyond the evidence of his senses. He lived inwardly in the end, while others waited for permission to begin. The Wright brothers did not wait for proof that man could fly. They assumed it. Edison did not wait for light. He assumed it. The artist, the composer, the visionary, all began in the unseen world of imagination. So tonight I ask you to do the same. Do not say someday I will be successful. Say instead, in consciousness I am already the embodiment of success. Feel the reality of it, not as something hoped for, but as something real now. Let that feeling take root. For that invisible act of assumption, sustained and believed in, will become the solid fact of your world. The man who waits for conditions to change is bound by time. The man who assumes the end transcends it. In the fourth dimension, your success already stands complete. Your only work is to awaken to it, to enter that state, to dwell there in imagination, until what was unseen becomes the most natural fact of your life. That is the secret of living from the fourth dimension. When you assume success, something remarkable happens within you, something invisible, yet so precise and orderly that if you could see it with the eyes of spirit, you would marvel at its perfection. The moment you occupy a new state in consciousness, your entire inner world begins to reorganize itself. Your thoughts, once filled with questions, begin to move in harmony with certainty. Your feelings, once restless or doubtful, settle into quiet confidence. Your inner conversations, those unspoken dialogues you carry all day, shift their tone completely, and you do not make these changes through effort or willpower. They happen naturally, automatically, because consciousness, once moved, must bring everything within it into alignment with the new state. I have often said that success is not the result of positive thinking. It is the state of being from which all thoughts of success flow naturally. You see, there is a vast difference between trying to think successful thoughts and actually being success in consciousness. The former is struggle. The latter is effortless expression. Let me illustrate. Imagine that you walk into a room. You do not stand in the doorway repeating, "I am in the room, I am in the room, I am in the room," hoping to convince yourself that it's true. You simply cross the threshold and are in the room. The state itself requires no effort to maintain. It's natural, self-sustaining. Or imagine that you slip on a new garment. You do not need to remind yourself every few moments, "I am wearing this coat." Once it's on, it conforms perfectly to your body. It moves as you move. It becomes, for that moment, an extension of you. Success is such a garment. You must wear it inwardly until it feels completely natural. You must let it mold itself around your consciousness so that it no longer feels like something you're pretending, but something you simply are. The same principle can be seen in water. Pour water into a glass, and it takes the shape of the glass without effort, without command, without strain. The water does not need to affirm its form. It simply yields to the container that holds it. So too does consciousness yield to the assumption that shapes it. When you assume the state of success, you become the very mold of that success. Your consciousness, like water, flows into the new shape and fills it completely. This is the inner alchemy of transformation. Now, most people make the mistake of thinking of success rather than thinking from success. And the distinction is everything. To think of success is to see it as something outside of you, something distant, something hoped for, something that might arrive if fortune smiles upon you. You are the seeker, and success is the prize. You imagine the condition as desirable, but apart from your present self. But to think from success is to enter the state where it is already accomplished. It is to look out upon your world through the eyes of the successful man. It is to feel that inner completeness that needs no outer proof. The man who thinks of success is like one standing before a locked door, gazing at what lies beyond, but never stepping through. The man who thinks from success has already walked into the room and closed the door behind him. I remember many years ago, when I first began to practice this law, I would sit quietly and imagine myself as I wished to be. I would not merely picture success as though watching a play. I would feel it from the inside, feel the weight of it, the rhythm of it, the naturalness of it. And as that feeling took root, the world outside began to move, quietly, inevitably, to reflect that inner change. No effort, no struggle, simply the outpicturing of a new consciousness. When you assume success, your reactions to life alter in ways you could never plan. The old fears lose their hold. The small frustrations that once disturbed you no longer seem important. You begin to make choices that fit the man you have become in consciousness, not the man you used to be. The entire pattern of your experience reorganizes to match the tone of your new state. And here is the wonder of it. You cannot hold two contradictory states at once. The assumption of success automatically dissolves the consciousness of failure. The new light casts out the old darkness, just as the dawn banishes the night. You do not need to fight the dark. You simply turn on the light. So when I say to assume success, I do not mean to force the mind into constant affirmations. I mean to quietly, confidently, be it in imagination, to live from its center, to feel its truth as the most natural fact of your existence. That is the secret, not to act as though success might come, but to rest as though it has. You may find that when you truly enter this state, you stop speaking so much about success. You no longer need to remind yourself that it's coming. You move, think, and live as the man who already possesses it. And in time, the world confirms what consciousness has long known to be true. So remember this simple distinction, for it will change everything. Do not think of success. Think from it. The former leaves you hoping. The latter leaves you knowing. The secret of all manifestation, my friend, lies in naturalness. Success, to be real and enduring, must feel as natural to you as breathing. It must cease to be something you reach for and become something you simply are. When a state still feels forced, when you must strain to believe it, when you must repeat words to convince yourself, it means you have not yet accepted it as natural, and until it feels natural, it cannot remain. Consider this simple truth. You never wake in the morning and say, I am human. You do not need to remind yourself that you exist or that you are alive. You do not affirm it 100 times before leaving your bed. Why? Because the state of being human, of being alive, is so completely accepted that it requires no effort to sustain. Now, in precisely the same way, success must become natural to you. It is not something you must continually force upon the mind. It is not a slogan or a formula to be repeated mechanically. Success, when truly assumed, feels as ordinary and as effortless as your own name. When a man begins to affirm desperately, I am successful, I am successful, he is really confessing that he is not. His very effort reveals his unbelief. He is like the beggar wearing a crown, hoping that by repeating I am a king, he will convince himself of what he inwardly denies. But when success has been accepted in consciousness, when it has truly been assumed, there is no effort in it. You do not affirm it, you express it. You do not claim it, you are it. You see, behind every word you speak, behind every thought you think, there lies a deeper knowing, that silent, eternal awareness called I am. This is the name of God, revealed not in thunder or fire, but in the quiet realization of being. When Moses asked for God's name, the answer came, I am that I am. Not I was, not I will be, but I am pure being, without condition, without beginning or end. That same I am is the root of your own awareness. When you say, I am, you are speaking the name of the infinite, clothed in the limitation of man. Whatever you add to those two words, you give life to. You make it flesh in your world. So when you say, I am successful, do not speak it as a wish or a charm. Speak it as the recognition of a truth that already is. Let the words rest upon your consciousness like a gentle garment, not a burden. The feeling of I am is the foundation of all creation. It is the spiritual center from which every state takes form. You may call yourself poor or rich, sick or well, fortunate or doomed, but in every case, it is the same divine being saying, I am. The words that follow determine the shape of your world. To assume the successful state, therefore, is to rename God within yourself. You take the sacred I am, and instead of joining it to failure, or doubt, or limitation, you unite it with success. You say, I am successful, not I hope to be, not I will be someday, but simply, I am. And when this statement ceases to feel strange, when it feels as obvious and as natural as saying, I am here, then the assumption has been accepted, and its outer expression is inevitable. That is the test. How natural does your desired state feel to you? If it feels distant or artificial, it means you are still standing outside the door, looking in. But if it feels ordinary, if you can move through your day with the quiet ease of one who already is, then you have entered the room, and the world must conform. This is why I say, do not fight with your mind. Do not argue with appearances. Simply persist in the feeling until it feels real. For feeling is the bridge between the unseen and the seen. A friend once said to me, Neville, I keep affirming my success, but it feels like a lie. And I replied, then stop affirming and start imagining. Stop saying the words and begin to feel the scene that would be true if you were already successful. You see, affirmations, when forced, are like trying to paint over a wall without cleaning it. The old pattern bleeds through, but imagination cleans the wall entirely, and a new picture takes hold. So tonight, when you say, I am successful, do not say it as one trying to convince himself. Say it as one remembering a truth he had merely forgotten. Let it feel gentle, obvious, inevitable. Let it be as natural as your breath, as quiet as your heartbeat, as certain as your own existence. For the moment success feels natural, the very instant it feels like something you simply are, creation is finished. The rest is only the shadow catching up with the light. All that you are, and all that you will ever experience, springs from one root, your self-concept. It is not your education that determines your success. It is not your background, your family, or your past mistakes. It is the image you carry of yourself, that deep, often unspoken conviction of who you are in the world. Show me a man's self-concept, and I will show you the pattern of his life. If a man secretly assumes himself to be a failure, life will play out that assumption in 1,000 subtle ways. He may work hard, study diligently, plan with great care, but his own inner verdict will always override the outer effort. His world will bend itself to confirm what he believes himself to be. He will say, you see, nothing ever works for me, and he will not realize that the failure he sees is only his own reflection, faithfully mirrored by the law. And then there is another man, a man who assumes himself to be fortunate, capable, and divinely guided. He may begin with less money, less education, less opportunity, but he walks through life as though the hand of providence rests gently upon him. He expects good, not as a surprise, but as the most natural thing in the world. He does not hope for luck. He assumes favor, and because the world is only a mirror of consciousness, it must return to him that which he assumes. Doors open. Men call him lucky, but luck has nothing to do with it. He is simply faithful to a higher concept of himself. You see, the outer world is always moving in response to the inner arrangement of consciousness. The events of your life are not causes, they are effects. Every change in the outer world is preceded by a change in the self-concept that governs it. If you wish to change your world, you must first change the way you see yourself. There is no other way. You cannot hold the concept of yourself as small and expect to experience greatness. You cannot assume yourself unworthy and expect to be honored. The world cannot outpicture what you will not in-picture. So I say to you, stop trying to patch up the old self. Stop trying to make him rich, or successful, or admired. The old self, the one who doubts, who fears, who struggles, must die. You cannot pour new wine into old bottles. You must be born again. Born, not of the flesh, but of consciousness. To be born again is to abandon the old concept of yourself and to assume a new one. It is to let the former identity, with all its limitations, fall away, and to take up a new garment. I am successful. I am free. I am the embodiment of divine favor. This is not a poetic idea. It is a psychological and spiritual fact. When you change your concept of self, the world has no choice but to rearrange itself accordingly. Let me give you an image. Imagine two actors on a stage. One wears the costume of a beggar, the other the robes of a king. Now both are the same man, the same substance, the same life, but each experiences a different world because of the part he plays. So it is with you. The self-concept is your costume in the drama of life. If you continue to wear the rags of failure, your world will match them perfectly. If you dare to clothe yourself in the consciousness of success, your world will bow to that new image. And here lies the great paradox. You must first believe yourself to be what you desire, before the evidence appears. The world calls this foolishness. I call it faith. Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality of your new self. It is the quiet, unwavering conviction that who you are in consciousness must one day be seen in flesh. So I ask you, who are you now? In the secret places of your mind, not who you appear to be to others, but who you believe yourself to be when the lights are out and no one is watching. That concept, that silent assumption, is writing the script of your tomorrows. If you would experience unstoppable success, you must stop patching the old and begin embodying the new. Die to the man who tried, who waited, who doubted, and rise as the one who is. Let the old self sink quietly into forgetfulness. Speak to him no more, for he belongs to yesterday, and yesterday is dead. Stand now in the consciousness of your new being. Feel its weight, feel its ease. Let it become so natural that you forget there was ever another. For when the old self is buried, and the new self has risen, success is not something to be achieved. It is something that you are. Now let us speak of something that troubles many sincere seekers of this law, the matter of circumstances. How often I have heard it said, Neville, how can I believe in my success when everything around me denies it? My business is failing. My debts are mounting. The people I depend on have turned away. How can I assume abundance when lack stares me in the face? And I always answer the same way. Circumstances do not determine your success. Your consciousness determines your circumstances. The outer world is not the master, it is the servant. It does not create, it obeys. What you call problems are not obstacles. They are the raw material from which your assumption will shape a new reality. You see, this entire world is a vast, living canvas, waiting for the brush of your imagination. The facts that now confront you are not fixed. They are simply the residue of old assumptions, yesterday's thoughts made visible. They are the old painting, the one you created when you did not yet know your power. Do not curse the canvas. Do not despair over what is now drawn upon it. Simply know that you can paint a new picture. The secret is to stop reacting to what is and begin acting from what is already true in consciousness. Let me explain. When a painter stands before a blank canvas, he does not lament its emptiness. He sees within himself the finished picture, the colors, the balance, the form, and that inner vision guides his every stroke. If he makes a mistake, he does not throw the canvas away. He paints over it. Your present circumstances are exactly that, the canvas upon which you will paint the masterpiece of your success. But what most people do, when they see the unfinished or imperfect picture of their life, is to panic. They cry, "Look at this mess. Look at what life has done to me." They curse the colors, the shapes, the composition, not realizing that all they see is their own consciousness objectified. You cannot fight the canvas, my friend. You can only change the vision that paints upon it. So when I say, use your present circumstances as raw material, I mean this. See every condition, no matter how stubborn or unpleasant, as the substance that your new state will transform. If your business is failing, let it be the very ground upon which the new business will grow. If your bank account is empty, let it be the soil that will bear the fruit of plenty. If your body is weak, let it be the very clay from which new strength will arise. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is against you. Everything can be used once you know that consciousness alone is cause. Here is how you do it. When you face a difficult situation, do not react as the old man would react. Do not fall into fear or resentment. Pause and ask yourself quietly, if I were already the successful man I desire to be, how would I see this? How would I feel about this? What meaning would I give to it? Then act, think, and feel from that position. For instance, if a door seems to close before you, do not see it as rejection. See it as redirection. Say within yourself, this is simply the movement of the bridge of incidents, the rearrangement of my world to make room for my success. If someone criticizes you, do not defend yourself in anger. The successful man does not need to prove his worth. He knows it. Smile inwardly and rest in the quiet dignity of your new self. If lack appears, do not call it loss. Call it transition, the clearing away of the old to make space for the new. Every circumstance, when seen through the eyes of the successful state, becomes an instrument of fulfillment. But if you react in fear, in doubt, in self-pity, you are simply reaffirming the old state, and the old state will persist. You see, life does not test you. It reveals you. The way you react to conditions shows you the state you are occupying. If you respond with confidence, you are standing in the new state. If you respond with despair, you have fallen back into the old. So use every reaction as a clue. When you catch yourself reacting as the old man, do not condemn yourself. Simply stop and remember who you now are. Say quietly, that was the old me, the one who feared, the one who struggled. I am no longer that man. And then, in imagination, feel the ease, the assurance, the quiet mastery of the successful self. Let that feeling wash over the situation. The circumstance will not change immediately, but your relationship to it will. And that change in consciousness is the true beginning of transformation. For remember this, the outer world does not need to be conquered. It needs only to be reinterpreted from the new state of being. When you cease to fight the facts and begin to see them as pliable, as obedient, as waiting for your command, then every so-called obstacle becomes the servant of your success. The man who understands this law is never disturbed by appearances. He looks upon chaos and sees only raw material. He looks upon limitation and sees only the chance to prove the law. So whatever your circumstances may be tonight, however unpromising they seem, bless them. They are not your enemies. They are the clay from which the divine potter within you will shape your new world. React no longer from fear. React from success. For the man who has assumed success does not tremble before appearances. He knows that the world is his mirror, and that the image, once changed within, must soon reflect that change without. When a man assumes a new state of consciousness, when he dares to claim, I am successful, though the evidence of his senses denies it, he sets in motion what I call the bridge of incidents. Now, the bridge of incidents is not a mysterious force that drops miracles from the sky. It is the natural chain of events, the perfect, ordered sequence, through which your assumption finds expression in the world of fact. Once the assumption is made and felt as real, life begins to rearrange itself with mathematical precision to bring about the fulfillment of that state. The men and women you meet, the letters you receive, the so-called accidents and coincidences all become steps on that invisible bridge, leading you to your desire. But here lies the difficulty. For most, the bridge rarely looks the way we expect. Many imagine that once they assume success, life will unfold in a smooth, effortless line, doors opening, obstacles melting, fortune smiling, and sometimes it does. But more often, the rearrangement of your world begins with what appears to be disruption. You may lose a job, a friend may withdraw, an opportunity you counted on may vanish. And if you judge by appearances, you will say, "I knew it wouldn't work. Nothing has changed." But I tell you, do not be deceived by appearances, for these seeming setbacks are signs of movement. Think of the earth itself. Before new land can rise, the old strata must shift. The plates beneath the surface grind and tremble. The ground shakes, not because something has gone wrong, but because new order is being established. So it is in consciousness. When you assume a new state, the old conditions, the patterns of thought, the relationships, the structures built upon your former self-concept must realign to serve the new pattern, and that realignment often feels like an earthquake. You may look at the shaking and think, "My world is falling apart." But I tell you, your world is not falling apart, it is falling into place. The apparent destruction is not chaos, it is creation in progress. Consider the caterpillar. He does not climb a little higher each day until one morning he sprouts wings. No, he enters the chrysalis and dissolves. The form he once knew disappears completely. To the untrained eye, it seems death, unending. But within that stillness, a marvelous transformation is taking place. The caterpillar is not dying. He is being remade into the butterfly. So it is with you. When you assume the state of success, the old life, built upon lesser beliefs, begins to dissolve. Certain conditions must pass away. Certain people must move out of your experience. Certain habits, thoughts, and fears must die. This is not punishment. It is purification. I remember once, after assuming a state of financial abundance, my life seemed to go backward. Work dried up, invitations ceased, my bank balance shrank. But I persisted inwardly. I said to myself, "This too is part of the bridge. I do not know how, but I know the end." And in time, one event led to another, perfectly and naturally, until the abundance I had assumed became visible fact. Looking back, I could see that every so-called setback was a necessary step. Each delay was a design. Each loss was a preparation for gain. The law never fails. The only question is, will you trust it when it hides its hand? The bridge of incidents is guided by a wisdom greater than your conscious mind. It knows the shortest, surest path to the fulfillment of your assumption, a path that may pass through valleys and detours that your reason cannot understand. You do not need to plan the way. You only need to walk in faith. Let me give you an image. Imagine a great architect who has designed a perfect building. The workers who carry out his plan may not see the full design. They may tear down walls, remove scaffolding, break and rebuild, and to an onlooker, it may seem disorderly. But the architect sees the whole. He knows each blow of the hammer, each stone laid or removed is bringing the design into being. Your deeper self, that divine imagination, which assumed the state of success, is the architect. Your outer world is the construction site. The events that unfold, pleasant or unpleasant, are the laborers bringing forth the structure. So when life seems to move in strange or uncomfortable ways, do not lose heart. Say to yourself, "This is the bridge. I cannot yet see the pattern, but I trust the architect." For trust is the great secret. To the man who walks in faith, even the detour is progress. Even the delay is alignment. And one day, perhaps quite suddenly, you will find yourself standing at the end of that bridge, in the full realization of your desire. You will look back and marvel at the precision of it all, at how each seeming setback, each loss, each coincidence was perfectly timed, perfectly necessary, perfectly wise. Then you will know that nothing was ever against you, not one thing. The bridge of incidents is always built in love and perfect order. Your only task is to remain faithful to the end you have chosen, and to trust the unseen wisdom that leads you there. Now we come to one of the most delicate, yet most vital aspects of this work, the art of ignoring appearances and guarding your inner speech. You see, man's senses are wonderful servants, but terrible masters. They were never meant to dictate truth, only to report what consciousness has already accepted. Yet most people live enslaved by appearances. They see something they dislike, they hear something discouraging, and at once they bow to it as final authority. But if you wish to live by the law of assumption, you must train yourself to see beyond the visible, to hear beyond the audible. You must remember always that the outer world is a reflection, and no reflection has power over its source. When I speak of ignoring appearances, I do not mean closing your eyes to them or pretending they do not exist. I mean refusing to give them authority over your inner state. For instance, if your bank statement shows a balance of 0, you need not deny the paper, but you must deny its finality. You say within yourself, "This is but the shadow of my former belief. My real substance is abundance. My consciousness of supply is the truth, and it must express." You must hold faithfully to your inner conviction, no matter how loudly the senses contradict it. And this brings us to inner speech, that ceaseless conversation taking place within you all day long. For whether you are aware of it or not, you are talking to yourself constantly, commenting on life, evaluating, judging, fearing, expecting. That inner dialogue is your permanent prayer. It is what determines what the outer world will echo back to you. If you assume success in imagination, but then spend your day saying inwardly, "Nothing ever works for me. I'm so unlucky. Maybe one day I'll make it," you are canceling your assumption. You are planting weeds over the seed you have just sown. You cannot speak failure in the secret places of the mind and expect success in the open field of the world. So I ask you, what are you saying to yourself now, in the privacy of your heart? For most people, inner speech is careless, habitual, reactive. They rehearse disappointments before they occur. They imagine arguments that never happen. They compose speeches of defeat and call it being realistic. But the wise man becomes the guardian of his inner words. He listens carefully to what his mind whispers when no one else can hear. And if he finds that those whispers contradict his assumption, he changes them, deliberately, persistently, lovingly. You see, the change of consciousness does not happen in one grand declaration. It happens in the small, continual adjustment of inner speech. Every time you shift from "I hope" to "I am," you are aligning yourself more deeply with the reality of your assumption. For example, when you catch yourself thinking, "I hope I succeed," stop and correct it. Say instead, quietly but firmly, "I am successful. I have succeeded." When you hear the mind mutter, "I don't know how it will happen," replace it with, "It is happening perfectly, in divine order." When you feel the fear whisper, "It's too late," respond, "Nothing is too late for the power that works through me." This is the true discipline, not of action, but of inner attention. Your inner speech is the workshop of creation. It is there, in those unseen conversations, that your world is shaped. Imagine a sculptor chiseling a figure from stone. If his hand trembles, the form distorts. If he works with care and steadiness, the beauty emerges exactly as conceived. Your inner speech is that chisel. With every word you speak to yourself, you are carving the shape of your future. Let me tell you something. The outer silence of a man means nothing if his inner world is noisy with fear and contradiction. The man who learns to quiet that noise and speak only from the end, only from fulfillment, has found the secret of prayer. For true prayer is not pleading with an external God. It is the adjustment of your own inner talking to the tone of already being what you desire to be. That is why Scripture says, "Let the weak say, I am strong." It does not say, "Let the weak say, I hope to be strong," or "I will one day be strong." No, it commands the weak to declare strength now, because in that declaration lies transformation. So when appearances tempt you to doubt, do not argue with them. Simply turn inward and reaffirm your assumption in silence. Let your words be few, but full of conviction. I am. It is done. For as surely as the sun rises, your inner speech will crystallize into the outer fact. Guard it well, therefore. Speak only what you wish to see grow. Refuse to rehearse defeat. Refuse to tell the old story. And soon you will find that your inner world has become so steady, so full of faith, that no appearance can shake it, and the world, obedient as ever, will mirror that unshakable peace. Now let me share with you one of the most powerful and sacred practices I ever discovered, what I call the state akin to sleep. This is the golden doorway between the conscious and the subconscious mind. It is that gentle, drowsy borderland where you are neither fully awake nor yet asleep, where thought begins to give way to feeling, and imagination becomes alive and effortless. Why is this state so important? Because it is the path to creation itself. Your subconscious mind, which expresses everything you assume to be true, is most open and receptive in this borderland. When you impress an idea upon it at that moment, not through effort, but through feeling, it accepts it as fact and sets about rearranging your world to make it visible. So tonight, and every night, I want you to practice this method with one purpose: to assume the state of unstoppable success. Let me take you through it, step by step, exactly as I have done myself countless times. First, find a quiet place where you will not be disturbed. Sit or lie down comfortably. Allow the body to relax completely. Feel every muscle loosen, every breath slow and deepen. Let the day fade behind you. Then, as you begin to drift, not asleep yet, but deliciously drowsy, let your thoughts grow faint. The cares of the day will try to intrude. Let them pass like clouds. You are not pushing them away. You are simply allowing them to dissolve. Now choose a single, simple, imaginal scene, one that would naturally follow the fulfillment of your desire. If your aim is success, perhaps it is the feeling of a dear friend grasping your hand and saying with joy, "I always knew you'd make it." Perhaps it is the sound of applause, or the sight of a contract being signed, or the weight of a check in your hand. It doesn't matter what the scene is, so long as it implies, naturally and convincingly, that your success is already accomplished. The key is simplicity. One short, vivid moment. Now enter into that scene. Do not watch it as a spectator. Live from within it. See through your own eyes. Feel the texture of the moment. Sense the air, the light, the warmth of the room, the sound of your friend's voice, the firmness of the handshake. Let it be real, not by straining, but by allowing. Then, most important of all, feel the tones of reality. What does success feel like? What is the quiet satisfaction that comes after victory? What is the naturalness of it, as though it could never have been otherwise? Do not think of success as something to come. Feel from the truth that it is. This is the difference between imagining about and imagining from. If you imagine about, you stand outside the scene, like an observer. You say, "Wouldn't it be wonderful if that happened?" If you imagine from, you are in the scene, breathing its air, living its reality. You say, "This is happening, it's done." And as you hold that feeling, just for a few seconds, perhaps half a minute, allow yourself to drift into sleep. Fall asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. For when you sleep in that state, the subconscious takes it as the last impression of the day, and that impression becomes the seed it nurtures through the night. You may not see any immediate change the next morning. Do not be concerned. The seed has been planted in the soil of infinite intelligence, and its growth is inevitable. If you do this faithfully, night after night, your world must rearrange itself in harmony with your assumption. The people, the opportunities, the coincidences, all will form the bridge of incidents that leads you naturally to your fulfilled desire. Let me give you two examples of imaginal scenes you can use tonight. In one, imagine a friend, someone you love and trust, approaching you with a wide smile. You can feel the warmth in their voice as they say, "I heard the news, you've done it. I'm so proud of you." Feel the emotion of that moment, the gratitude, the joy, the quiet realization that all your persistence was worth it. Let that emotion fill your entire being. In another, imagine yourself sitting at a familiar desk. Before you lies a document, perhaps a letter, a contract, or a message of confirmation. You pick it up, read it, and a deep sense of fulfillment sweeps over you. You close your eyes and whisper, "Of course, it had to be so." Both of these scenes are short, simple, and filled with emotion. That is all you need. Do not worry about the details, how it happens, when it happens, who plays what role. The law will handle that. Your task is only to feel the end and rest in that feeling. I often say, the subconscious is like a faithful servant that receives the orders of the conscious mind in the language of feeling. It does not argue, it does not reason. It simply accepts and expresses. So when you impress upon it the feeling of success, it must bring forth success, not because it wishes to reward you, but because it cannot do otherwise. Remember, you always manifest what you are conscious of being. Tonight, as you lie down to sleep, do not carry with you the worries of the day. Carry instead the sensation of victory, the ease, the confidence, the gratitude of a man who has already succeeded. Let sleep take you in that state, and as surely as the dawn follows night, your assumption will take root and bear fruit in your waking world. This, my friends, is the sacred art of assuming the end in the state akin to sleep, the golden key to the subconscious, the royal road to unstoppable success. When you awaken in the morning, your great work begins, not in effort or striving, but in living from the state you have assumed. You have impressed success upon your consciousness in the quiet of the night. Now you must carry it with you into the light of day. You see, the test of true assumption is not how deeply you can feel it in meditation, but how faithfully you can live from it while moving through the ordinary scenes of life. So I ask you each morning, how would I walk if I were already the success I desire to be? How would I speak? How would I decide if I knew beyond question that all power was working for my good? If you can answer those questions and then act accordingly, you are living from your assumption. Now, I do not mean you are to act with pretense or arrogance. You are not to boast or pretend before men. No, it is far quieter than that. It is a silent inner dignity, a way of carrying yourself as one who knows. When you walk with ease, not haste. When you speak, your words carry calm authority, not doubt. When you make decisions, they are marked by confidence, not by fear of failure. This is the true expression of living from the end. It is not an outward show, it is an inward certainty. Most people wake each day and check their outer world to decide how they should feel. If the circumstances look favorable, they are hopeful. If not, they sink into worry. But you, who understand the law, reverse this order. You begin with the feeling of success, and you let that feeling determine what your world shall reflect. The man who lives from success does not need to chase after opportunities. He attracts them. He does not struggle to impress others. Others feel his assurance and respond accordingly. He does not rush or fret, for he knows that everything unfolds from the state he occupies. Let me tell you, inspired action is not anxious action. It is not the feverish attempt to make something happen. It is the natural movement that flows from the state you occupy. When you live from success, you find yourself moved to act in ways that align perfectly with your desire. And these actions feel effortless, even joyful. You do not plan them with the conscious mind. They arise spontaneously, like breath. I remember once, after assuming the state of abundance, I felt an unexplainable urge to visit a certain place I had not thought of in years. I followed that impulse, and there, quite naturally, I met the very person who would become the channel through which my assumption was fulfilled. I did not make it happen. The action flowed from the state. That is what I mean when I say you are not to concern yourself with how. The how will reveal itself through your natural behavior when your inner conviction is firm. But here is the great secret of daily living: consistency. The state of success must become your dwelling place, not an occasional mood. You cannot visit it at night and abandon it by morning. You cannot say, I am successful, when all is quiet, and then live as though you are defeated once you step into the world. The world is your mirror. It reflects only the state you consistently occupy. So throughout your day, return often in mind to your chosen state. When you find yourself drifting into worry or doubt, gently remind yourself, no, I live in success. I am already the man I wish to be. This is not effort, it is remembrance. If you persist in remembering, your state will harden into fact. For consciousness alone is the reality that molds all form, and soon it will no longer feel like a practice. It will feel natural, as though you could not be otherwise. You will no longer need to keep the feeling will keep you. Then success will not be something you imagine. It will be the air you breathe, the tone of your voice, the quiet rhythm of your life. And in that steadiness, without struggle or strain, you will find that all things, people, places, opportunities, flow effortlessly to support the state you have chosen. That, my friends, is what it means to live daily from the state of success. It is not an act you perform. It is a condition you inhabit. Now, before we move further, let me speak to you about a few common pitfalls that so many encounter on this path. The quiet traps that delay their realization, not because the law fails, but because they lose faith in its perfect operation. You see, the law of assumption never wavers. It is constant, impartial, and unfailing. But man, through impatience or forgetfulness, often interrupts his own harvest. Let us look closely at these pitfalls, so that you may recognize and overcome them when they arise. The first pitfall is what I call watching the clock. You have assumed your state. Perhaps you have entered the scene in imagination, felt the tones of reality, and fallen asleep in that feeling. The seed is planted, but then, the next morning, or the next week, you begin to look for signs. You ask, why hasn't anything happened yet? And in that moment, you dig up the seed to check if it is growing. You must remember, time is the servant of your assumption, not its master. The moment you impress the feeling of fulfillment upon your consciousness, creation is complete. The outer manifestation unfolds according to divine order, not human hurry. So when impatience tempts you, remind yourself, it is done in consciousness. The rest is gestation. A farmer does not dig up his crop the day after planting. He trusts the unseen process beneath the soil. So too must you trust the unseen process within consciousness. Do not watch the clock, watch your faith. Let time take care of itself. The second pitfall is jumping from state to state. Today you declare, I am successful. You feel the thrill of fulfillment. Tomorrow, some event contradicts it, and you slip back into the old state of defeat. You become the pendulum, swinging between conviction and doubt. But remember, it is not the strength of a single moment's assumption that brings results. It is the persistence of your chosen state. You cannot serve two masters, success and failure, and expect either to reward you. You must remain in the state of success, regardless of appearances, until it hardens into fact. If you find yourself slipping, do not condemn yourself. Simply return, quietly, naturally, to your chosen end. Say within yourself, no, I live in success. It is already mine. Make this your inner home, the place to which you always come back. Persistence is the key. Not struggle, not repetition, but the quiet determination to dwell in the end, until it feels natural. The third pitfall is trying to dictate the outer form of your desire. Many people, having assumed the feeling of success, immediately begin to plan how it must unfold. It will happen through this person, this job, this opportunity. But I tell you, that is not your concern. You are not the architect of form. You are the chooser of ends. When you try to control the how, you interfere with the wisdom of the law. The infinite mind that created you knows infinitely more ways to fulfill your assumption than you could ever devise. Let it choose the form. Your task is simply to hold the end, to rest in the feeling of already being the success you desire to be. The means will arrange themselves with perfect precision. I recall once desiring a certain outcome and insisting inwardly that it must come by a specific path. For weeks, nothing happened. Finally, in quiet reflection, I surrendered the how. I said to myself, it is done. Let it unfold in its own perfect way. And within days, the very thing I sought came to pass through channels I had never imagined. The moment I released control, the law was free to operate. So remember these three corrections. When you are impatient, rest in faith, the seed is growing. When you are inconsistent, return to your chosen state. Persistence is mastery. When you are controlling the outer, surrender. The how belongs to the infinite. And above all, refuse to worship appearances. Do not bow before the idols of sense, the facts that seem to deny your assumption. They have no life of their own. They are merely shadows of past beliefs, waiting to be reshaped by your new conviction. When you catch yourself thinking, but nothing has changed, smile gently and say, everything has changed, in consciousness. For that is the only place where change truly begins. Hold the end. Rest in the knowing. Let the Lord do the work. And when you persist in this quiet confidence, you will discover that every obstacle, every delay, every twist of circumstance was only leading you more surely to the perfect expression of your success. Now, my friends, let us rise to the deeper meaning of all that we have spoken. For the law of assumption, though it brings success in the world of men, points to a far greater revelation. You see, what the world calls success, the wealth, the recognition, the comfort, the power, these are but shadows cast by something infinitely more profound. The true success is not found in possessions or positions, but in the awakening of the one who possesses and assumes the realization of who you really are. You have heard me say many times that consciousness is the only reality, but few understand the full majesty of that truth. For consciousness is not a human faculty. It is God Himself, individualized in you. When I speak of imagination creating reality, I am not speaking of a trick of the mind. I am speaking of the divine power that spoke worlds into being. That same power lives, moves, and breathes in you as your own wonderful human imagination. So when you assume the feeling of success, you are not merely shaping circumstances. You are allowing the God self within you to express its nature. For success, abundance, and creative power are its very essence. Man's failure, his frustration, his struggle, these are not punishments from without, but the results of forgetting who he is. When man identifies himself only as flesh and bone, as a creature among other creatures, he cuts himself off from his own divine source. But the moment he remembers, even faintly, that I and my Father are one, that the life in him is the life of God, then the locks of limitation begin to fall away, and success flows to him as naturally as light flows from the sun. For success, in its truest sense, is nothing more than God expressing Himself fully through you. When you stand in your assumption with faith, when you live from the end with love and certainty, you are not forcing anything, you are allowing the divine to move through you unhindered. The money, the opportunities, the achievements, they are simply the garments that the inner life wears for a season. They are the outward reflection of an inner harmony. But if you chase only the shadows, if you seek success for its own sake, without recognizing the source, you will always remain restless, for shadows cannot satisfy the soul. That is why I say to you, do not seek success, express it. For you are success itself, you are the power that creates worlds. When you know this, when you truly feel it, you will find that the outer forms, the wealth, the health, the admiration, appear naturally, but they no longer define you. They are yours, but they do not possess you. And even when they fade, as all forms must, you remain unshaken, for you have discovered the changeless source within. So let your pursuit of success be a doorway to the knowledge of self. Let every desire lead you back to the truth that you are the one imagining, sustaining, and expressing all. In that realization lies freedom, the only freedom worth having. For the man who knows his true nature as God, inaction can never fail, never fear, never want. He lives in a state of perpetual creation, knowing that the outer world is but the reflection of his own divine imagination. Then, success becomes not an attainment, but a revelation, the outward sign of an inward awakening. And when you see that your success, your peace, your joy, are all the play of the infinite within you, you will understand the words, "Be still and know that I am God." For in that stillness, you realize that all your striving was only to discover what has been true from the beginning. You are not a man trying to become divine. You are the divine imagining himself as man, and success is simply your natural expression. And now, let us bring all that has been spoken tonight to its rightful conclusion. Everything I have shared with you rests upon one eternal foundation. Consciousness is the only reality. There is no power outside of you. No circumstance, no person, no event has authority over the state you occupy in consciousness. The world you behold is only the mirror of that inner assumption. And I tell you with absolute certainty, your assumption of success, the vision you have held, the state you have felt, is already complete. It exists now in the fourth dimension, that timeless realm where all things are finished. You are not waiting for success to come to you. Success is waiting for you to assume it. The moment you take your attention away from appearances and rest in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, it begins to move toward manifestation with mathematical precision. So remember this always. Your only work is to assume and persist, not to struggle, not to beg, not to seek signs or proof, but to stand firm in your conviction that what you desire is already yours. The law cannot fail, for the law is life itself. When you know this, when you live in the awareness of being the operant power, life ceases to feel uncertain. You no longer ask, will it happen? You know it is already happening. You no longer ask, when? For time itself bends to the rhythm of your faith. And so, as we come to the end of this lesson, I speak not to the man of doubt, but to the God within you, the eternal I am, the dreamer of this world. You are the creator of every event, the author of every scene, the master of every destiny. Your consciousness is infinite in scope, and when you assume success, the universe rearranges itself to mirror your conviction. You are not here to strive for success. You are here to express it, naturally, effortlessly, inevitably. So I say to you now, stand tall in your awareness. Walk in the full dignity of your divine inheritance. Let these words settle deep within you. I am not a seeker of success. I am success itself revealed. I am the power that creates. I am the consciousness that commands. I am the author and the finisher of my own reality. Let this understanding flow through you like light through clear water. For when you know that your imagination is God in action, you can never again feel small or fearful or uncertain. Now close your eyes. Let your body grow still. Take a deep, quiet breath, and as you exhale, allow every trace of tension to fade. Feel the silence around you grow rich and alive, as though the very air listens for your word. And from the stillness, repeat within yourself, slowly, deliberately, as though each word were a seed planted in fertile soil. I am successful. I am unstoppable. I am the operant power of my world. I live from the end, and the end is fulfilled. Everything I need is already mine. The law of assumption never fails. My success is inevitable, for it already exists in consciousness. I and my Father are one. I am that I am. Feel the rhythm of those words echo through your being. Let them not be mere affirmations, but realizations, living truths awakening in the depths of your soul. Feel the quiet power of I am. It asks for nothing. It declares all. Rest in that awareness as you drift towards sleep tonight. For in that sacred borderland between waking and dreaming, these words will take root in your subconscious, and from that soil will spring the full harvest of your assumption. And in the days to come, as your outer world begins to mirror your inner conviction, you will know, beyond question, beyond doubt, that this law is perfect. You will see that success was never a matter of chance, nor effort, nor favor, but of being. And so I leave you with this eternal command. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Persist in it, and let nothing in this world shake your faith, for it is already done. And what is done in consciousness must manifest in form. Go now in peace, in certainty, and in joy. For truly, my friends, you are about to experience unstoppable success, because you are its source.